what's going to happen with Hezbollah. Hezbollah has done a masterful job of escalation management. They have been, I mean, it's like the Israelis, are sitting there in this boxing match with Hamas, and Hamas split the eye, and Israel's bleeding here, and Hezbollah is just sitting there once in a while going, "Let me rub some salt in that wound for you. And come on, get out of here." Boom, boom, pow, you get salt in that wound. Stop it. Hezbollah is just sitting there pissing them off because they're really, really putting, and it's hurting them. Remember how sophisticated I said the Houthi were? Understand that most of what Hezbollah is doing against Israel is economic in nature. Yes, they're taking down Israeli troops. They're destroying a lot of Israeli tanks, a lot of Israeli infrastructure. But what they're really doing is terrorizing the north so much that 70,000 Israelis had to be withdrawn from the northern settlements and resettled in temporary accommodations. That ain't free. That ain't free. It's costing Israel billions of dollars. And that 70,000 who, they had jobs up there, which means they're working, they're producing, there's taxes, the economy kind of stuff. They're here now. They ain't working. They ain't producing. They're just sucking up resources. It's a huge, huge, giant, gutting of the Israeli economy. The same thing out of what Hamas is doing in the settlements in Negev. People tens of thousands had to be relocated. Man, this is a giant hole in the Israeli economy, and it's unsustainable. On top of that, 300,000 reservists. You know what a reservist is? It's a working man. It's a guy who has a job. He has a family. He is participating in the Israeli economic experience. And now he's not. Now he's in the reserves where he's getting a paycheck because they have to pay him, but he's not producing anything. That job is gapped. Whatever he was doing in the Israeli economy ain't happening right now. And billions of dollars. So what Hezbollah is doing, what the Houthi are doing, the economic impact on this is destroying the Israeli economy, destroying it. And this is unsustainable for Israel. So this alone is prompting the Israelis to say, we have to resolve this fight. You got people like Gallant. I think he's the Minister of Defense right now. What a character, with his genocidal talk. But he's talking about we're going to take it to them. Gallant knows, though, and so does the Israeli Defense Force, that if Israel were to open up a second front against Hezbollah, that Hezbollah will take Galilee, that northern Israel will fall. Because Hezbollah's got 80,000 guys. Many of them, most of them perhaps, are combat hardened. That means they've been fighting in that, the Syrian conflict. These guys know war. They're very well trained, very well equipped, very well motivated, and they have a plan. If you think the Hamas plan that was executed on October 7th was innovative, you haven't seen anything yet. Hezbollah has a plan to take northern Israel, and they will take northern Israel, and there's nothing Israel can do to stop it, which is a nightmare. So nobody wants escalation. So in a way, because we can't afford to escalate, the United States can't afford to escalate, Israel can't afford to escalate, you make it even, you give the people who are putting the pressure on you even more latitude because they know you don't want to escalate. So they're going to push the envelope even more and create more and more pressure. And that's what's happening right now. This is the untold aspect of this war, but it's this aspect that's probably going to promote, the collapse of Israel more so than just Hamas defeating Israel in Gaza.
Yeah, and maybe lastly on this, do you feel like the confluence of these various aspects of Israel's brutal onslaught and what it's produced, both in its troubles with fighting Hamas on its own terrain and the fact that that there is an axis of resistance that has been managing a conflict escalator that is prepared to move up. Do you feel like, given that Biden has given this deadline, that Israel will actually follow it? Because Israel's capacity for rational military and political behavior, especially since the aftermath of October 7th, appears to have diminished nearly to non-existence. I'm curious on your thoughts about that.
I mean, it's a tough political question here in America because of the control that the Israeli lobby has over everything. Congress, the presidency, the media, the spin. So it's an uphill struggle to get America to, change its policy regarding Israel. In the past, it was Israel can do no wrong. We support Israel no matter what. But we're now paying a price for that. And so I do believe you're going to see pressure being put on Israel. I think Netanyahu is finished. I think he's going to go. I think Biden is going to make it clear that continued American support of Israel is contingent upon a change in the Netanyahu government. We pretend that it doesn't mean Netanyahu is going to go, but if you dissolve this right-wing coalition, then Netanyahu can't continue as prime minister because it's consensus-driven. He has to get a ruling coalition. He won't be able to. Somebody else will step in and take over, and that's what we want. But here's the danger of all this, Danny. Here's the problem. And we got to be honest about this, because right now we're being lulled into a false sense of complacency. Hamas is kicking ass. There's no doubt about it. Hamas will not be defeated. But who likes Hamas? Does Egypt like Hamas? Nope. Does Jordan like Hamas? No. Does Syria like Hamas? Not really. They were just at war with them a couple of years ago. They tolerate Hamas. Turkey? Yeah, Turkey likes Hamas, but not that much. Not enough to go to war for them. And the further we get away, you realize that Hamas is very unpopular. And if we just erase the term Hamas and insert the term Palestinian, let's be honest, nobody cares about the Palestinians. There's a whole bunch of demonstrations taking place right now, but these are cause-effect demonstrations, meaning that if it weren't for the slaughter of the Gazans, these demonstrations wouldn't be happening. These people aren't going to go into the streets and demonstrate on behalf of a two-state solution or a one-state solution or a free Palestine. They're demonstrating because the bombing's happening. So what happens when the bombs stop falling, when the genocide stops? Are these people going to continue to be out there putting the pressure on the United States? Is the United States going to continue to feel isolated, or is it going to go back to what it was, where people say, wait a minute, so they've stopped, we don't have to turn on TV and look at dead Palestinian babies anymore? Oh, thank God. So let's get back to what we were doing, which is chugging along with normal economic activity where the Palestinians are problematic. We don't want to do it. And so the danger here is that all the sacrifice that the Palestinians have made, and believe me, they are making the suffering they're doing through, and you see there's a growing recognition amongst them that they have to do this. This is their burden to pay to get statehood, that all of that will be for naught, because there will be a desire to, we don't want to embarrass Israel. We don't want to humiliate Israel. We're going to look for a compromise solution where we have a moderate Israeli government who will return to giving lip service to, reviving Oslo, but never really being serious about reviving Oslo. And gradually the Palestinians will be forgot again. I'm afraid that's the direction that we're heading. And so, it's imperative that the international community find a way to sustain this pressure, because change will happen, because the United States feels the pressure. I mean, when we start turning on Israel, the pressure is working. All right. But the problem is, let's say we get Israel to change, the fighting stops in Gaza. Now the United Nations comes in with their, because the UN doesn't like the Palestinians either. I mean, nobody likes the Palestinians. They've been getting screwed by everybody forever. And so you start turning it over to these old institutions, and it's forgotten. The only one out there articulating right now for the Palestinians seriously is Iran. And here's where the hope is, because Iran has good relations with two nations who are the nemesis of the United States in the geopolitical arena, Russia and China. And Russia and China have historically kept sort of a hands-off approach to the Palestinian issue. But I think Russia and China, I think they do care about the Palestinians. There's a genuine concern. You see, Putin articulating things that no Western leader has ever articulated about what Israel is doing, criticizing Israel. And China is talking about getting engaged. And it's in China's interest to take advantage of what's going on to expand Because what is Gaza going to need? Infrastructure development. Who's pretty good at that? China. So it's an opportunity for China. It also, if you keep pushing the necessity of a Palestinian state to resolve this Arab-Israeli conflict, you keep putting pressure on the United States too. What the United States wants to do is quickly get back to, even though Biden says that we won't be returning to October 6th, I guarantee you all the U.S. wants to do is get back to October 6th. That's all we want to do. We're not looking forward to any of this innovative political stuff in the Middle East. It scares us. Russia and China, on the other hand, are looking forward to something like that. So I'm not giving up hope for the Palestinians, but I am saying that all this stuff that we're seeing, all this pressure, these votes at the UN, that can disappear that quick. And you know it. You know it can, because we're not talking about, a deep foundation of love for the Palestinians out there in the world. We don't like seeing dead Palestinian kids. So people are rallying to the cause of Palestine. But when the kids stop dying, will that support for Palestine still be there? And that's the big question.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a big question, and I share your sentiment about where the hope is, because yes, Iran is indeed a very serious actor when it comes to supporting Palestine, and I think you're exactly right. Both Russia and China, when it comes to this region, see the Palestine question as both one of course, standing for international law. That's what Russia and China like to do. They like to promote it because it's within their interests. Most stable, rational countries who are thinking about both their own development and what's good for the world in terms of their own development. It's stability. It's peace. It's not having this massive conflict, which could lead, that's genocidal in nature, that could lead to a very hot war between most countries in the region. That is an ultimate disaster for Russia and China. So, of course, this Palestine question is so important to not just stabilize, but also, Russia and China are the only countries outside of the region, for the most part, outside of some outliers that don't have the same kind of influence. But the biggest countries that do support a Palestinian state and legitimately do, not giving lip service like Blinken does when, he says we're for this two-state solution, and then, green lights the absolute eradication of it that Israel is pursuing. Both Russia and China actually do support this.
Yeah, and we are living in an age of geopolitical transformation. I mean, it sounds very academic. It sounds like geopolitics 201, your junior level course in college for that international relations degree. But it's real and it's happening, and it's in many ways it's exciting, but in many ways it's scary, because we collectively, the world, have for so long grown accustomed to American hegemony. We can talk about how we're opposed to it, and everybody's like, we're against American imperialism, we're against hegemony, we're against the rules-based international order. Of course you are, except you're not, because you are for stability. And while there is a whole bunch of instability in the world out there, there's a whole bunch of stability that's brought about by this, and people are lulled into a false sense of complacency by the perception of stability. And right now, where this transformation that's taking place from the American singularity to this global multipolarity, BRICS and all that stuff, it scares people, because it means you have to put your faith and your trust in something else. Now, if you're somebody who has been disrupted by the American singularity, yeah, you're ready to jump ship. But if you're somebody whose life has been chugging along in relative comfort, it's a scary proposition, a frightening proposition. So it's not, automatic logic where people say, well, America's failed, so we're going to jump on the Chinese and the Russian ship. Well, for many places in the world, America hasn't failed. We didn't get to be number one because we're a bunch of losers. Okay, we did some things right, and we bullied our way to the top, whatever you want to say. But America is a very powerful nation that has a lot of successes attached to it. And a lot of people around the world found those successes attractive, especially the political and economic elites who make money off the American singularity. And so this idea that we're just going to seamlessly transfer power over to the Russians and the Chinese, that ain't going to happen. This is a very scary time. And it would be scary if this transformation was taking place in a conflict-free environment. But now we start throwing in the not only the reality of war, but what's that biblical statement? Rumors of war. There will be rumors of war. There will be wars and rumors of war. So we have real war, but we have rumors of war too. Potential of conflict that is generated by the friction that comes from this transformation. It scares the crap out of me. And I think it scares the crap out of just about anybody who's out there because, is the United States willing to go gently into that good night? Dylan from Dylan Thomas here. Or are we going to rage against the dying of the light? And my fear is that we're going to rage, and we're going to lash out, and we're going to create problems. We're going to make as much friction as possible rather than doing the smart thing, which is to smoothly transition and take an important seat at the table of multipolarity. We're going to resist that for as long as possible. And the consequences aren't just going to be economic and political disruption, but it can be, chaos and conflict as well. So as much as it makes sense for Russia and China to step into this Palestinian, crisis and be the leaders to get us out, it's just not that easy. America's not going to give up the role that it's enjoyed for, say, as it seems to be an international consensus, that the 67 borders represent both a fair, breakout of geography for Israel and a Palestinian state. I think that's the direction we're heading. I believe that's the Israel that should be allowed to exist, but not this political Zionist Israel, this Eretz Israel, this greater Israel defined by the Bible. And if you look at the map, it's ridiculous. And I in the United States, we have people condemning Hamas. And again, Hamas is not above condemnation. Of course, anybody can be condemned. And Hamas used to be a terrorist organization. Some people articulate that they are today. They talk about Hamas's charter, from the river to the sea. And the implication there, of course, is that Israel be, the land will be cleansed of Israelis. But people remember, Hamas came up in the 1980s, early 1990s. There was another charter that was promulgated in the 1950s. It was the Likud charter, the Likud party of Israel, from the river to the sea. The Likud invented this chant. And they're the ones actively implementing it right now. They're the ones who are articulating a case that all Palestinians should be removed from Eretz Israel. They are the threat to international peace and security. And I think that's what we're looking at right now, is that the world, the script has been flipped on Israel, and they're very much on the defensive. And therefore, everything you see being put out there by the Israeli Defense Force, by the Israeli government, must be recognized as propaganda of the sloppiest kind, because it's desperate propaganda, because they are on the defensive and they are desperately trying to regain public trust. But you can't regain public trust when everybody just has to turn on the TV and see what's happening.
That comment that you just made, that they have lost the world, is very accurate for what's going on in today's geopolitical climate. Another thing that I want to bring up to you, Scott, is I had a lot of emails from people of the program when you're on the program, and they're generally concerned. First of all, of course, there are people that are out trying to get information out. I think there's Jackson Hinkle. He's getting information out, but there's generally people concerned about your safety, since you are a voice of reason in this community. And, we all that have channels greatly appreciate your contribution to coming on and talking to our audiences. Can we talk about, the silencing of voices? We see that they tried to do it this weekend with Elon Musk, and last weekend with Elon Musk, by telling him categorically that all these advertisers are moving away from X. And then he systematically went through and said, okay, I'm going to go nuclear on Media Matters on Monday. So your safety, are you concerned about it? I mean, it's got to cross your mind.
Well, I mean, I'm not suicidal. I'm aware. Look, I've been on the Mir Tvoritz hit list for some time now. and there are elements in the Ukrainian government that very much want to see me silenced, and preferably from their point of view, permanently silenced. So yeah, you got to pay attention. We have some nut jobs living just down the road from me. They have a camp which is, they have a park called Heroes Park where Stepan Bandera's statue and other statues of these wonderful Ukrainian nationalist murdered Nazi sympathizers are worshipped by a very politically active Ukrainian American community. So yeah, it's something that you pay attention to. I received rudimentary training in counterterrorism and anti-terrorism when I was in the Marine Corps. Some of the skill set was pretty cool. High-speed defensive driving. So if they ever try and ambush me on the road, I think I still got that skill set, so I might be able to get away. Other stuff, I mean, look, if they want to kill you, they're going to kill you. That's just the bottom line. And so, if there's, it is what it is. I'm smart. I take, precautions, but I'm not going to live my life, especially here in the United States, in some sort of paranoid frenzy, worried about what's going to happen. I'm not stupid. I keep my radar up. But then you basically have to just get on with your life. I mean, they want to silence you, and so the best way not to be silenced is don't shut up. I mean, there's a comment in there, for a silenced man, Scott, I can hear you pretty often. Well, that's because you can't silence me. You can deplatform me. I mean, there was a while there, if you watched me on YouTube, you didn't get to watch me on YouTube because YouTube booted me off. They've now allowed me to come back. Other platforms, will, I'm sure at some point in time, be put under pressure to keep voices like myself and others, off. X, former Twitter, is under a lot of pressure. Elon Musk, fortunately, is a free speech proponent, and he's putting his money where his mouth is, and he's fighting for free speech, and I will continue to do so. I believe you are doing so as well. It is what it is. But you just got to be smart. Look, if it gets to the point where the Banderists and the Zionists have to kill people to win a debate, they already lost the debate. So I'll just keep speaking, and I encourage everybody else to keep speaking too. The greatest weapon to be used in an environment where people are trying to limit speech is more free speech. Just keep speaking. Just keep doing what you're doing, and leave it up to the discerning audience to decide whether or not your voice has any weight, has any relevance, has any merit. That's the ultimate arbiter. If you have to go around and shoot people or deplatform people in order to win a debate, then you've, like I said, you've already lost it. So I'll keep doing what I do, and I encourage other people to keep doing what you do. We can disagree. That's great. Again, I'm not trying to deplatform anybody. I'm not trying to silence anybody. All I'm saying is that there's an alternative point of view out there, sometimes multiple points of view, and they should all be heard so that the average listener, whether you're an American citizen or from anywhere in the world, you get empowered by knowledge and information. That's the most important thing. The most dangerous person in the world is that individual who thinks on their own because they have been empowered with knowledge and information, and they're not reliant upon anybody to tell them how to think, what the facts are. And programs like this help promote an alternative point of view. I don't want to call them alternative facts because there's no such thing as an alternative fact. A fact is a fact. But maybe an emphasis on a fact set that is otherwise overlooked. So again, thanks for having me. And yeah, don't worry about my safety. I'm good to go. Now, of course, I'm going to say that, and tomorrow they're going to blow up my car. But whatever.
God, don't say that, Scott. Oh my God. Oh, okay. let's pivot to another question I have. Do you think the information that the IDF, the Israeli government, if we went back a year and a half ago, where Twitter, and I want to zero in just a little bit more on Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter, do you think that has helped a lot in debunking what the IDF has to say, and maybe caught their propaganda machine off guard, where now what used to take 10 to 20 years to prove people like Colin Powell wrong can take the matter of an hour with these internet sleuths out there that go on Twitter and say, nope, gotcha, got you at this 1 minute 47 seconds 0.03. You had a gun here. Well, at 1.04 now, we rewound it, we watched it again, and boom, there's two guns or something like that. I mean, has that changed the landscape?
Look, it has. I mean, we're dealing with an international community that is linked. It's when you do a podcast like this, it's not just an American audience that's watching. There's a European audience, there's a Chinese audience, there's a Russian audience, there's a Middle Eastern audience, and they're all watching. We're all seeing the same thing, real time, live. And when you have millions of eyeballs, critical eyeballs looking at something, they're going to pick it out. It's, a lie works if you're talking to an ignorant audience and they're not empowered to expose the lie. But the global audience it's virtually impossible to lie to them because they are empowered with so many different perspectives. So, it's one thing to speak to a limited audience. There are people, let's just be honest. If I pulled, 1,000 people from my community and put them in an auditorium and tried to tap into their collected knowledge of the Middle East, it might be a very limited, limited amount of knowledge. And so they're susceptible to being misled by data because they're not in a position to question the data. If you get somebody who dresses up nicely, speaks properly, and in America, the best thing to do is get somebody with a British accent because they automatically sound intelligent, and you have them speak to them in a calm way, they're going to go, oh, this is good. But you have that same person broadcast this on the internet, and you're going to have people going, that's not right. That's a lie. Now, you also have people calling out a lie when it's not, because there's the opposite. The danger of the internet is there's no filter. And, so we have a lot of people who are doing good stuff on the internet, but we have a lot of people who aren't doing good stuff, meaning that they're deliberately trying to, promote lies by, muddying the water, etc. This is where, again, we have to respect the viewer, the customer, the audience on the internet, to be discerning. But we also have to be tolerant of the fact that because we're operating as this wild, wild west of information, that it's going to be rough. It's going to get sloppy. It's not going to be as polished as, CNN or MSNBC or BBC. It's going to be what it is. And but I think it's beautiful. I think what we're seeing here is the empowerment of a global population. And look, what's the first thing that happens when people don't want their audience to think, or their constituencies? They shut down the internet. Shut down the internet, because by doing so, you immediately stop the ability of information to be flowing freely. And sometimes, believe me, there's times when I'm like, man, I just wish they'd shut that channel down. But then I'm thinking there's people who I think the same thing about the things that I say. And again, the best antidote to bad speech is more free speech, is more speech, more speech, more speech. Get as many different points of view out there. No censorship. And it's taken everybody by surprise, especially Israel. Israel is a nation that is accustomed to controlling the media in the United States and in Europe, to control the narrative. They're accustomed to the default mode being support Israel at all costs, automatically condemn those who are opposed to Israel. That's been the default mode for the longest time. And they have, the two big cards they play. You're an anti-Semite. That's the biggest one. The second you're critical of Israel, it's anti-Semitism. They play that card. And then the other one, of course, is the Holocaust, the sympathy card. The Holocaust did this, that, and the other thing. My relatives, this, that, and the other thing. Therefore, you should never question what I'm doing today, because by questioning me, you're somehow shaming the memory of the Holocaust. And they've played those two cards over and over and over again. But right now, what's happening is I think people are recognizing that, first of all, being anti-Zionist doesn't mean you're anti-Jewish at all. And so the notion that anti-Zionism automatically equates to anti-Semitism, it's being pushed back. There's being pushed back by people like me who are saying, no. I'm not anti-Israel. I'm not anti-Jewish. I'm actually pro-Israel, and I'll defend a Jewish population as much as I'll defend any population. I'm an American, free religion, baby. You come to this country, you should be allowed to practice religion, do whatever you want, free of outside. And if there's people out there saying we're going to take down that synagogue or we're going to do that, no, you won't. I'll be one of the first people standing out there defending a synagogue, defending a Jewish cultural center with my life if necessary, because they're Americans and they deserve that protection. But that's not Zionism. That's Jewish faith, Jewish religion, Jewish culture. Zionism is something completely different. Zionism, especially political Zionism, is about using the Jewish faith in a way to elevate Israel, this Zionist Israel, this biblical Israel, this Eretz Israel, into an modern day version of the Aryan nation of Adolf Hitler. They're talking about we are the supreme people. We are the chosen people. I always like that one. God chose us. Didn't choose me. Didn't choose you. Didn't choose China. Didn't choose Africa. You're telling me God is very selective in who he chooses. So God made man in his own image, but he doesn't like 99.99999% of us, only the Jews. Only God loves the Jews. No, that's stupid. I mean, if you're Jewish and you believe, that's okay. I call stupid a lot of evangelical Christians. I call stupid too. A lot of fanatical Muslims I'll call stupid. I'm an equal opportunity insult artist when it comes to that. But the point is, if you're saying that Israel is superior to anything in the Holy Land, that there could be nothing else in the Holy Land but Israel. And it's not just Israel's 67 borders. They're talking, when you look at the map that these political Zionists put out, they're taking over Syria, Lebanon, moving into Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. They're talking about taking over the whole thing. And these guys are in power. It's not like these are a bunch of fanatics, hanging out in their mother's basement, typing on the computer all day long. These are guys who are actually ministers in the Israeli government as we speak, articulating policies based upon this premise. That can't be supported. But we're not allowed to condemn that today. We're not allowed to question that because we're automatically called anti-Semite at that point in time. It's like the phrase, God bless the United States of America. You're 100% correct. Again, my wife tells me, do not read the comments, but every once in a while I see one that has to be. You're 100% correct, the person who wrote that. Look, I love America. I love America, and I love my country. But when I hear an American politician say, God bless America, I mean, that's not bad. I don't mind that. Please, God bless us. We need all the blessing we can get. Reach down and touch us. Make it all go away. Make us good again. Please, please, please. But the way it's done is it's used to promote the notion of American exceptionalism, meaning God bless America, but God damn the rest of the world. Meaning all you don't count. Only America. Only America counts. Only America has been touched by his Lord. And that's absurd. That's absurd. Even if you don't believe in monotheism, if you don't believe in the God of Christianity, the God of Judaism, the God of Islam, which a lot of people don't, it doesn't matter. We're all equal. We're all humans. We are all the same. It doesn't matter what color you are, what language you speak, whatever. No life is worth more than another. And one of the problems with both the American, God bless America stance and the Israel, we are the chosen people stance is it implies that there are people who are more important than other people whose lives matter more than other people. Anytime you hear the Israelis talk about, for every, Israeli killed, we're going to kill 100 Palestinians. Well, you know who did that? The Nazis. For every German soldier who was killed, we're going to hang 100 people. We're going to shoot 100 people. We're going to burn that village. We're going to do. Israel has become that which was trying to destroy it. That's one of the things here. So, getting back to your question, I think we're going to see a lot of desperate acts by a lot of desperate people trying to silence voices that, for the first time in a long time, are starting to resonate. There are people now who aren't afraid. That's the other thing, is people become fearless because it's hard to shut them down. people can now get out there and call out Zionism as the political scourge that it is. And yes, they'll be attacked, but they'll also find a lot of support. And there's people saying, see, the internet has built up this whole anti-Semitic thing. Yes, it has. Yes, it has. There's a whole bunch of communities out there on the internet. There are communities of hate. There are communities of intolerance. There are communities of whatever you want to say it. That's the consequence of free speech, ladies and gentlemen. Free speech means everybody gets to speak. The difference here is that I don't have to embrace that which is put out there. There's the people watching right now, you know, if you don't like what we're saying, Alex, I don't mean to do this to your show, but if you don't like what we're saying, click, turn it off, stop watching. You don't have to watch. No one's paying you to watch. You don't have to watch. If you don't like it, get the hell out of here. Alex cares because I care about but the bottom line is I don't care. If you don't like what you're hearing, go find something that you do like. But see, the beauty of it is where there is quality, people tend to gather around, and good ideas beget good listeners and good participants and good audiences. And this is a good audience because you have good guests and you talk about things like that. You can't shut Twitter down because there are voices on Twitter that you disagree with. What you need to do is say, thank God, not only that they get to speak, but I get to speak and to counter them. Because if you're saying you need to shut them down, what you're saying is your voice isn't strong enough to compete against them. I'd like to believe that my voice can compete against any pro-Zionist voice out there. I have an open challenge to anybody that's taken a different point of view on the issue of Israel to debate anytime, any place. You name it, we got it, buddy. But they won't. Piers Morgan, you know, he's out there attacking people. He basically, you know, bans people, blocks them, doesn't want to have that discussion.
Yeah, he has a fallback answer or the fallback comment all the time. Israel has its right to defend itself. But here's something I want to ask you, Scott, because I get this from a lot of people watching the show. They say, you know, we were at a bar, we were at a restaurant, we were at our uncle's house for the weekend, and somebody brought up the Israel-Palestine, and they're saying, like, is there a way that we can try to engage? And most of it is, I would say, a lot of the people say, well, you know, the Piers Morgan line, well, Israel has its right to defend itself. I think the average person watching this program has probably either been involved in a conversation like that or has been pulled into a conversation like that, and sometimes maybe a bit afraid to answer back. Is there a go-to? I don't know. I mean, you are a person that I would love to have beside me when I'm sitting in these situations where people just come right at me. And
yeah, I'll tell you what I would do in a bar. Come at me at a bar. Israel has the right to exist. I go up to him and I say, "Give me your keys to your car. Give me your keys, or I'm going to break your damn neck. Give me the keys to your car, and I'm taking your car, and I'm going to your house, and don't you dare show up." And then when you come up and say, "I want my house," I'm going to say, "What? You think you have a right to defend yourself?" I mean, I'm going to kill you because I have a right to defend myself. And you're going to say, "But you have no right. You stole my house." I have a right I have an inherent right to defend myself. I stole your house, and now you want to come and get it back? I'm going to kill you, but you can't do that. It's my house. I have an inherent right of defense. Welcome to the Israeli argument. They stole the Palestinian land. They stole everything. And then they say, when you dare come back and say, "I want it back," or "I want to challenge you," you can't. I have a right to defend myself, and I have Big Brother America that's giving me the airplanes, the bombs, and everything to do it, because we guarantee that Israel has the technological supremacy over any potential enemy. The occupier never has an inherent right of self-defense against the occupied. That is international law. That is what the International Court of Justice decided in 2004 about this very issue. So that's what I would just tell people, that Israel's the occupier, and they have no inherent right of self-defense against anything the occupied do in relation to the actions of the occupier. And then, they can, then I'll just say, "Give me your damn house. And don't come near me because I have an inherent right of self-defense, and I'll kill you the moment you step across the threshold." No, well, you can't do it. You just said Israel could. Why can't I? Why can't I steal your house and say, "Get the hell out of here"? You just told me Israel has an inherent right of self-defense. They don't. See, if I steal your house and I'm in your house, you have every right to come in and kill me because I stole your house. You're in the right, I'm in the wrong. Israel's in the wrong here, especially Eretz Israel, this political Zionist, infused Israel. I would say this, that the Israel defined by the 48 borders and the 67 borders has a right to exist. And if you're attacking the Israel of 48 and 67, then Israel has an inherent right of self-defense. But what Israel's doing to Gaza right now is not, everybody's like, they got out in 2005. There's a thing called CLA and COGAT. And I just asked people to go and Google it. The Israelis give you a nice, convenient website that explains what it is. The Civilian Liaison Agency, and COGAT is the military arm. They manage everything that happens inside Gaza. Don't tell me that Israel is outside of Gaza. Nothing happens in Gaza unless Israel says it happens. Unless Israel approves it. Nothing goes into Gaza unless Israel says it's approved. If Israel had nothing to do with Gaza, why can't Gaza have a port? Why won't Israel allow shipping in and out of Gaza? Because they can't allow the Palestinians to be in control of their lives. Why don't they have an airport? Why can't Palestinians get a Palestinian passport, go to the Palestinian airport, and fly around the world like we all do? They can't. Why? Israel says they can't. Don't
Scott,
tell
let's
me
talk
Israel's
about that.
occupying Gaza. Israel occupies Gaza. Israel controls every aspect of Gaza.
Let's talk about that, because I think the average person doesn't really understand, still to this day, what this occupation means. Let's talk about, if you're a Palestinian today, what are your chances of going to an airport, going for a walk on the beach, leaving, coming back, communicating with loved ones around the world? Internet, no internet. I mean, what rights do they have, if any, Palestinians? And really, the future, they've wiped out, 4,000 or 5,000 children. I mean, isn't this a recipe for an underground movement to say, wait a minute, this is a whole young generation coming up. They've been battered and beaten down, and brothers and sisters have been killed. I mean, Israel really thinks that they're going to get the message through. I mean, isn't this a recipe for disaster?
Well, it is a recipe for disaster. Let's just put it this way. If you're a Palestinian, you have no rights. None. Zero. Now, I know there's going to be lawyers out there say they have an inherent right of being treated like human beings under the... No, they don't. And the proof is what's happening right now. 12,000 have been murdered. Where are their rights? Where are their rights? They don't have any rights. Nobody's going to go to jail for murdering them. 12,000 murders. 4,000 dead children. All those people out there, we care about the kids. You don't give a damn about the kids. If you did, you'd be up in arms, fuming at the mouth, storming the gates. No, you're like, oh, we're hard. They have no rights. None. Zero. No one's doing anything. Now, there's people in the streets, and God bless those people. Please continue to do that. But we all know what happens eventually. The demonstrations, they can't go out there forever because they got to go to work. They got to earn a paycheck. They got to go home. They got to feed the kids. They got to do this. They got to do that. And eventually the demonstrations peter out. The nations that could do something aren't doing anything. This is why, again, China, step up to the plate. Do something. Be the leader you claim you want to be. It's China's time to shine. It's China now that can take the lead in solving this problem, because America isn't going to. America can't. We've been discredited. We're not impartial. It's time for China to shine. But, the way you shine is that you have to pick a good versus evil. And I think it's time now that we recognize that Israel is on the side of evil right now. China needs to side with the Palestinians in a fair way. But I mean, this is we're at a state right now where if you want to say the Palestinians have rights, then you have to stand up and defend those rights. You have to defend them. There's a whole bunch of French lawyers that have come out and said, we're going to defend you. Well, then do it. I'm glad you came out and said you're going to do it. The proof is in the pudding. I want to see case after case after case after case filed in the International Criminal Court. I want every single Israeli pilot to be indicted. I want every Israeli soldier, every Israeli politician. If you hold an Israeli passport, you need to be indicted for the crime of mass murder. Collective punishment. You're all guilty of it. because you allow it to happen. This maybe the Israeli passport thing was a little bit too much, but but my point is, you have to start standing up and defending Palestinians if they're to have any rights. Because if no one's going to stand up and defend them, then they have no rights. You say, you talk about walking the beach. Really? There's cases where boys went to play on the beach, as boys are wont to do, and the Israeli Navy killed them. Who stood up for their rights? There's a case where mothers are with their children in their home trying to prepare the afternoon meal. Bam, bomb got them. Who stood up for their rights? Don't tell me that the Palestinians have rights. They don't. They have no rights. They don't have the right to live. They don't have the right to breathe. They don't have a right to eat. They don't have a right to travel. They have no rights. They're not even people. They're just statistics. And the proof again is in the numbers. Because one should be too many. One should be too many. But 12,000 weren't just like, because here's the funny thing. Talk to the Americans. I always love this one when a stupid American diplomat gets out there. 12,000's too many. Well, what's an acceptable number, boy? 12,000 is too many. 8,000, that a good number for you? So if you're the Palestinian and you got in the lottery and you pulled number 7,999, you don't count. But if you got lottery number 8,001, your life matters now because 8,000 is too many. It's just the dumbest thing in the world for anybody to ever say that 12,000 is too many. One is too many.
Scott, how does China get involved?
Well, how did China get involved with Saudi Arabia and Iran? China is a global power. China has global interests. China's interests seem to be grounded more in stability than trying to impose Chinese will. The funny thing is China brokered this deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And how many Chinese troops then moved into the Middle East to take over that base that Iran promised them in exchange for this? Or how many Chinese airplanes flew to Saudi Arabia? None. That's my point. China didn't do this to get into the Middle East and take over the Middle East. China did it because they need Iran and Saudi Arabia to trade with them via BRICS, via the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. They need that to get the Chinese, economy, the Belts and Roads Initiative and the new Silk Highway to connect with the Middle East, to do this thing that China's really good at, which is promoting global trade and commerce. That's what they need: stability, long-term stability, not short-term, long-term stability. So China is the only nation that is looking for, for instance, if they were to get involved in a solution, and they've been saying they're prepared to do this. It's not like I'm asking China to do something China's been saying for years, we're ready to take the lead on resolving this issue. But their solution isn't going to be in America. See, America can't give you a solution because we're dealing with a Congress that's bought and paid for by Israel. The last time I checked, Israel doesn't own the Chinese government yet. Who knows? Down the road, it may happen. But in the United States, our government is bought and paid for by Israel. They own it. So everything we do is going to be a short-term focus for the short-term benefit of Israel. We're not looking for any long-term solutions. This is why whenever America is involved in a two-state solution discussion, it immediately disappears, because we have to be responsive now to the immediate political needs of an Israeli political class that survives because of America. And so if we're doing something that makes it uncomfortable for them, we have to immediately correct the course in short-term. China is long-term. China's about economic. Here's the other thing too. Take a look at Gaza. Who's going to rebuild it? Who has the resources to rebuild it? Who has the ability to leverage their global economic clout into rebuilding? The United States can't. Again, we got money, but hell, the only way we could rebuild Gaza is if we sold more bonds to China to raise the money to rebuild Gaza. That's the ridiculous state of the American economy today. China, on the other hand, again, the Chinese government has to decide what's in its best interest. But one of the things that China can offer, and again, look at how excited Benjamin Netanyahu got about at the General Assembly debate when he was showing the map, not of the Iranian bomb as he used to do, but of the map showing the Middle East, India economic corridor, the India Middle East economic corridor that came up through Haifa connectivity. And he's like, oh, Israel's going to be. China can offer that to Israel. China's the only one that can offer that to Israel. China can offer that to Israel. China can offer to rebuild Gaza. China can be the voice of sanity and stability that's premised on the economic well-being of all parties in play. China doesn't care what you're